Hi, friends.
Howdy.
What's going on? Hold on.
It's 11 degrees. I don't know what that is, but it's cold. Again.
Shut up, Brad.
Where are you coming from, Brad? Hawaii, California? Where are you this time?
California.
Uh-huh.
How many residences do you own?
Just three.
Oh, just three.
Just three. Sure. Okay.
Is your surname Trump?
Just.
No, where I am, it's like Trumpville.
Is it?
I'm over at the
Oh,
I'm over by Lake George and the Adirondacks.
Uh,
oh,
So I think Alden said he's going to join. We'll just wait for a minute.
I did have a little trouble joining, but it worked eventually.
Yeah, it was 5:30 and then it was 6 o'clock. So I was a bit just running through what we've got to talk about. So.
Well, how many of the new people are joining? I can see
I think just
Mike here.
Mike's here.
Gilbert and Mike, I think. I hope Gilbert can join. But yeah, I think it's a problem because um, yeah, it's just a difficult time zone and people are traveling or on holiday and things, so it's tough. So shall we get started?
Are you going to tape this?
Yeah, it's being recorded, so I'll put it up on YouTube afterwards as well, so people can run through it because it's for the new members, but a lot of them can't attend, so we'll just do the recording anyhow.
Well, that was the whole point of this. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so the first item is the website, info and email groups. And Brad, you're here. Would you like to talk us through it?
Yeah. Can you
I
can I
can. You can share. I think you can share. Just let me make sure that you've got the ability to do it. You should be able to. Do you want to try?
okay. How do I do this? Oh wait.
There's
There's
a
a share.
share
Yeah.
button. Yeah.
It says host disabled
Oh,
participant screen sharing.
let's try this. All participants.
Ah, there we go. Do you see my screen now?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess the main thing I sort of wish that some of the other newer committee members had joined, but Mike's here, which is great. Um, so I did send out an email to all of the new steering committee members, letting them know that we have this steering committee website that you can log into. Um, Basically, you just select your name, enter your password, and log in. Now, so at the very top, we have the calendar. So this it allows steering committee members to create new calendar items. In general, the individual clubs can create calendar items for their own club. And if you go to, so all of this information here in this middle column is generated by the clubs or the steering committee members. It was a little bit too onerous to have people send the information to me and for me to post it. So we have it set up so that the clubs can do it themselves. They can add, they can delete, they can modify any of their activities, and it gets automatically posted to this to the website. And as the events pass, as the dates and times for the events pass, then they just drop off the list automatically. Um, and they are sorted based on what is coming up next. So anyway, so we do have this calendar option here. You can just click on um, this this link here to create the entry. Okay. Aside from that, we have the membership link, which shows all of the current, well, all of the current members. The the clubs outlined in purple are the current members, and then we also have some other clubs that are not current. You know, did we decide that we were going to drop the older club members? I don't know if we did decide that or not.
I can't remember.
I certainly I think Blue Ridge isn't going to get dropped. So, but I don't know about the others.
About that, Blue Ridge never contacted me.
Oh,
I
they didn't get back to you?
emailed, I texted, they never got back to me.
Okay.
But
Yes.
I never got into their Facebook group. It's like they applied and they fell off the face of the earth.
Let's put it
Oh.
on the agenda for the next
Yeah.
proper steering committee meeting, because this is just supposed to be an orientation
Right.
discussion.
Okay.
So,
So-
old members dropping off, yeah. Which
So-
we probably just discuss that every time, so.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Mike, these clubs probably haven't paid their fees. Or they haven't. Every year you need to update the site just to know that you're alive. And so, because I
Yeah,
know
so-
there's a Berlin front runners, but they're just too lazy to do it. They don't care. And you're going to find a lot in Europe. They honestly, they don't care.
And they don't have to pay membership either, right? Because they've got only
They're
few
under
members.
25. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
but they
president
don't
of the Gay
update it.
Games, the male president of the Gay Games, is in Berlin front runners.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. And he,
Well,
he-
even
he-
in Canada, I found varying levels of interest, so it's not unique to Europe, I don't think.
yeah, true.
Yeah. So even for those clubs that don't have to pay anything, we do ask them to go in and just check and verify that the information that we have is correct. And if they don't do that, then they show up as not being current. So that's what that is.
So
Now-
I'm taking it is my job to chase these folks down
Yeah,
at renewal time.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're the treasurer.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we do have the region here listed in the center column, so you can find all of the clubs in your region.
Usually it'd be Alden that would chase them down, wouldn't it? Because he's the one who's after the membership.
Yeah.
These,
I think we have a combination of both.
And regional reps. Yeah.
Yep, the regional reps. Yep.
Yeah. Aside from that, we have the new club approvals. Now, we do have a link where a club that wants to become a member of International Frontrunners, they can fill out a form. Once they fill out that form, then we come to this page here where the steering committee members can vote on whether or not to approve a club. Now, I am currently working on this. And so if you click that, you're going to see this here. But my test page right here is basically what you'll see. So you'll have the club name, and then you'll have a link here that will show you everything that they submitted for their club. So you can verify that information. You can see how many members they have, you know, where they have their website or whatever, and you can use that information to basically form your vote. The Jacksonville club, I think this entry needs to be removed because we actually did approve them earlier this year. Right now we have Spokane and Halifax. So once a person votes, then their vote will show up here. Now the reason I'm changing this is that the way it is set up currently, it's based on the person's name. And what happens is when we change steering committee members, then that position is not votable anymore. Nobody can vote on that. So I'm changing it so that we use the representative. And so if you see up here, you'll see that this is how I'm changing it so that you know, the regional rep for that particular region or the officer can vote. But it's not completely done yet, so that's why I had that thing not set up.
Brad,
Um,
just so you know, within the federation, I'm known as the FTG delegate 1, and Brad Fletcher is 2.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Because
yeah,
we rotate in where we have to get voted on them as well.
okay, yeah,
with the
okay. I'll make that note.
So you can just make that FTG delegate 1 and 2. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. But so if you have voting rights, and all of us do, then you would just click here. You would enter whether or not you approve, and you would add any comments. And then once you submit this form, then that'll show up again back on here. So these are some of the previous votes and comments for some of the other clubs. So that's the new club approvals. Let me go back. Then we have the list of steering committee members. Now this is just the information that the steering committee members provided. This is not the public information. Under the emails, we do have the official representative emails. That has already been set up. I believe I've sent emails to all of them to verify that, to ask them to verify that that's true. And so that's the list of all of the committee members. And then we also have a profile thing where steering committee members can go in and enter information about themselves that they would, you know, they would provide to the steering committee members. The bio, you can just add information about yourself. And we also have pronouns. So any of this information will show up on our steering committee members list.
And the idea was that people used to, well, I still ask them to submit a bio so that everybody knows who they are when they come to vote for
Right.
their position. But even for the local groups, it's helpful for them to see that bio in the website so that people know a little bit about the representative.
Right. And then we have, I have.
And you can change it yourself, because I think the last time I went in, I just updated it 10 years ago or something. So it does get out of date. So it's important to remember to keep it a bit fresh too.
Right, exactly. Aside from that, we also have like right now we have the 2024, which will list all of the people that registered for the AGM. And you can go in and see who's registered, whether or not they're the voting member and that type of thing. So basically that's it. Let's see. There's this thing here. I have some certain things that I do to do certain checks. And so you won't see this, but it's what I use to do certain things, like checking to make sure that the regions are defined for all of the new clubs, that type of thing. Okay. So on the homepage, we do have this information here about the different tabs here. We do have this email address, which will send to all of the steering committee members. Now, we did have a mailing list. Unfortunately, the web hosting company just got rid of that. And so I am setting up a system with Brevo, I don't know how to pronounce it. I just
Sorry, Brevo?
Yeah.
Yeah, we use them for our club as well, and our about 3,500 names on our Pride Run mailing
Oh,
list.
great. Yeah. So I just set up all the DNS settings so that the emails will less likely end up in spam and everything. And I'm just setting up the contacts right now. So hopefully that will get done fairly soon. I hopefully within the next week or so. And I guess that's it for the steering committee stuff. For the
So
website
with
stuff.
that, is there integration between the profile on the website and the Rebo?
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I want to do. And
yeah,
with our previous list, that's what we could do. When a club would go in and update their information, that would automatically update the mailing list, so we didn't have to go in and manually change things. And
yeah,
I'm
I have
thinking
that
that,
with MailChimp. So there's a little bit of code that you put it on the web page, and then your membership and things like that get managed through the MailChimp database. But then now MailChimp is charging.
yeah,
So if you've got a few thousand members, it's a bit of it's problematic. But with only 125 clubs, it'd probably stay under the 500 limit for the
yeah,
expensive tiers. But
right.
yeah, if you've got another product, maybe when you've got time, you could take us through that too,
Yeah,
once you've set
yeah,
it up. Yeah.
I'll do that. One of the things that, yeah, so right now there is with Rebo, we would be just under the 500 emails a day limit, I think. Um, but the next tier up is like $9 a month, which is still cheaper than MailChimp, I believe.
Oh,
So
it's. I mean, we've got money, so
yeah,
that's not it should certainly be put through, because it's a lot of work. If you try and do it yourself, it's so much work. So
right.
yeah, it's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's where we are right now. I do know that Brian is trying to get a Taiwanese club started.
Yes.
That one's been going for 4 years. They
Oh,
just
yeah.
keep calling themselves OITN, I think, OITW or something.
It's because they're a subset of a team, like team.
They're like a multi-sport as
Yes,
well.
it's
So
not-
the running group is
running
part
is-
of it.
It's a tiny section of a big group. Yeah.
But it's nice that we're getting a Taiwanese. It's really nice that we're getting a Taiwanese club after all this time. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so I'm working with Brian to make sure that that gets done. And that's all I had, I think, for the website. If anybody has questions.
The only other thing was the email groups, Brad. I know that there's, we sort of every now and then go, oh, how do we email everybody, and how do we email steering committee, and how do we email, the region and things like that. So could you just, and I think that there was also a problem where we would email the steering committee and then put our own addresses in there, and it would make your mail server bounce or something. So
Yeah.
don't either email people as like the Western rep, the Eastern rep, the Asia Pac rep or something, or send it to the group. But if you do both, then it collides or something.
Right. Yeah. So our previous mailing list had a problem with that. But hopefully that's going to be all resolved when we have Revo set up. So I'll let everyone know how to go about doing that once we have it set up.
So at the moment, you can email the individual rep with their rep ID. You
Right.
don't need to know their personal email
Right.
address.
Right.
And then you get everybody by going IFR steering, right?
Right. Correct.
Are there any other groups?
Not right now.
Right. So when we sent round to the newsletter, did we have a group that was all the clubs asking them for the newsletter?
Yes, I believe so. So that was sent. I don't think that was used. Um, Booty asked me for a whole list of email addresses at that time, and
Ah,
that's who he sent to.
okay.
So we didn't have a group email that he used to send information, the newsletter to.
Oh well, if you use Rebo, then that'll come back, I guess. We'll be able to address
Yeah.
the
Right.
membership. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else on the website? That's it?
I think that's it for now. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing about the AGM stuff is that when it comes to the AGM, we have to register. We've run this process of registering on the website so that we get who's voting for the clubs, because
Right.
anyone can come, but only one person can vote from each club. So
Right.
that's a process that every year everyone forgets how we do it.
I know.
And I think that you saw that when Brad had it up before with the membership, you could actually extract the CSV, so you can see that information and like rearrange it and filter it and everything like that, so that you can. So this is the other thing: download an Excel file of registrations, so we
Yeah,
can
okay.
see who's registered as an Excel file, which makes it easier than just sort of trawling through it, because you can resort it according to clubs or who's voting and who's not voting and that sort of thing. So
Right.
then, unfortunately, with Zoom, and I don't know, Michael, this is something you might have some opinions about. We have tried using Teams in the past, which everybody absolutely loathed. They've found it absolutely reprehensible. I know that a lot of us use it for work. It's easy for me. And the new Copilot features have a lot of nice things when you're running meetings, but Zoom seems to have caught up with their AI functionality now, and they actually do really good meeting summaries, as we saw from the AGM.
Oh,
But
it was amazing.
yeah, just it's almost good enough to use, really.
Yeah.
I think the Copilot's almost there, the same sort of thing. But so there's a lot of great tools for meetings. We have Gmail as well. So we've got a lot of Google. We had all of the documents that we wanted to share, things like our communications assets, the things that we use for Instagram, letterheads, our templates. We paid somebody to do us a nice new logo a few years back. And so we put all that into some communications assets, and those are all stored on Google Drive. So there's a password for that I can give you after this. The trouble with that, it's a bit clunky to authorize it. So you need, with the two-factor authentication, somebody needs to tell me that they're going to log into it and I approve it from my phone, or whoever's on the authentication list can approve it from their phone. So yeah, it's a little clunky. So if you feel like you've got a better solution that you want to advance for that, Michael, then by all means. But yeah, just we store a few documents on. I'll just see if I can bring it up. Actually, probably.
I was going to ask where do you store things like minutes for meetings, past meetings, all that kind of stuff.
Oh well, yeah. They should be on Drive. I think that a lot of them are on my Dropbox because I haven't uploaded them. But that's a good point. Should probably fix that. So yeah, that we used to use Dropbox. Then we tried using Teams. That just didn't work because people wouldn't use it. And so we settled on Google as the next worst thing. And so, if you've got something that you think will be useful, then let's do that. But let me just share if I can.
Let me just quickly ask Brad. I know on the website we could see who registered for the AGM, but do we have who actually attended?
That comes from the Zoom meeting information.
Right, okay.
So Zoom publishes an Excel spreadsheet of who logged into the meeting, and I think last year we put that into the minutes, the sort of the meeting minutes, the recording, the transcript, and the thing were all stored. Unfortunately, that got lunched when our website was corrupted or whatever, or lost. So just switch to international frontrunners. Oh, here it is. It's popped up in another part of the world.
While you're pulling this up, Chris, I just have a question I should know the answer to, but we don't have any sort of legal status as a society anywhere, do we?
I think we're tax-free. entity in North America, in USA.
Right.
What I've done for Vancouver Frontrunners, there's a clearinghouse of free offers for nonprofits. So as long as you're registered somewhere, at least in Canada for this particular organization, you can get things like Google Workspace for nonprofits for free, which makes it really easy to do stuff like this and have multiple accounts. Like you could set up role-based accounts. So you wouldn't have to approve everybody's access. You just grant the roles the access and then they can log on. So we found that really effective and makes it easier to switch boards.
Can I give that to you as an action? Because it's been my action for about 2 years now. So if you'd feel like you want to investigate that, please by all means.
Yeah, I'll just need like whatever the legal description of the society is, any documentation you have on that. And I'll do some research. I'm sure there's going to be a facility to do that based out of the US. Google was pretty good about giving this away.
In the absence of me having that, it was Alden I think would have that. So we might email Alden for that.
I will make a note of that. And,
Okay.
and it's not too hard to set up. I can work with Brad on that. I've set up Google Workspace for multiple organizations.
Great. I think they have a Google Meet as well. Something is whatever it's called these days.
Yeah, it may not be good enough, but yeah, it's there as well. So that's an option.
I think that was one of the things about Zoom was that in the pandemic, it could easily handle 125 participants, whereas Teams couldn't, and WebEx could sort of, but Zoom was unparalleled as far as that went. I'm sure Google's probably good, but I haven't had any experience. I haven't had any good experience with Google in that space.
Yeah, I've not used it for numbers that large, just smaller team meetings. It's okay. Zoom still seems to be a bit better.
So as you can see, we set a lot of this up a long time ago, and it looks like there's not much in there. So I can drop all of that stuff in there anyhow from the Dropbox. But we've got our design materials are in there and they're up to date. So we've got, different logos and a style guide and all that sort of stuff.
Perfect.
So they gave us quite a few useful assets when we did that redesign. That sort of thing. So that's the documents on Drive. Yeah, I'll put what I have in the AGM folder in here at the end of this.
As far as the AGM minutes, those are all on the website.
That's right.
Except for the this past meetings minutes, because they haven't been approved yet. But
yeah, I think the most important thing was this design folder here, because it's quite some fat files that we don't have anywhere else really convenient to store them.
Right.
And you don't want them to be just randomly used by anybody. So that's why we've sort of kept them slightly protected. Just switch back. Oh, that's because it is open on the other drive.
Chris, is there shared access to the Dropbox, or is that just something you use?
Well, I can give you access to I can give you access to it. Usually people don't want to because it overwhelms their license. It's quite big. Do you have you have free Dropbox, or have you got a paid Dropbox?
I don't even use Dropbox, so it won't overwhelm me.
What's the one you use to share files mostly?
Well, we've been using for Frontrunners the Google Workspace thing, so I haven't needed it. In the past, I have used Dropbox in the past. I can find out what my account is. So I'll send you an email.
Okay, well, or I can share this drive. I can share this file with you.
Okay, sure, that'd be fine.
That might be easiest.
I'll send you a note with my Gmail account to do that.
Okay. I think think email groups, and then what else we had next item, unless anybody else's can remember anything or think of anything that we need to talk about for the website. Okay. Was hoping Eldon would be here, but he said he was on holiday and he might not be able to join. So I guess that's the case. He sent me a financial statement.
So Mike, we actually do have quite a bit of money there, but in the old days, pre-COVID, we actually used to really meet, and those events used to cost money. So
Right.
we've kind of accrued that, and at the moment it owes me and Brad Fletcher some money for we attended Guadalajara games and we had some costs and we bought IFR banners. Just so you all know, Brad Fletcher in Minneapolis has 2 banners. Me in Sydney, I have 1 banner. But we could, they're cheapy, made in Mexico at very short notice, good price. They're not fabulous, but they're sustainable for the time being. But that's something we might need to get in the future. And if we are now looking at, like many other organizations, leaving working from home basically to going back to real meetings, because we have had a tentative request that Honolulu host an AGM, and it kind of got kiboshed because they want to have it at a completely wrong time of the year for when we have our AGMs. And once that was explained, they're still interested, but they're investigating. And I think it's mostly being run by Richard Hervé, who used to be not officially. Was he on the committee or not? He was always. I think he was the zone rep, wasn't he? Wasn't he before you, Nick? The regional rep, sorry.
Yeah, I think he was. And
Yeah,
then I think he was in charge of communications for a
He
little
did
bit.
comms, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's still around, but he's got he's richer than Brad. He's got apartments all around the world.
Wasn't he also the regional rep for Eastern Region though?
Yes, that's what I think he was before
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But his partner, his husband Xander, was my counterpart in the Federation.
Right.
Yes, I remember that. I love Xander.
But Xander's badly injured and can't run anymore.
Oh no.
Well, that's no good. Yeah, they did a lot of work together for front runners.
And attended gay games meetings as well.
But I think also whenever he tries to organize something, Xander reminds him that he doesn't have any time to do any of that and to get back and stick to his knitting. So yeah, anyway, we always said that if they wanted to have some event that they want to publicize, we'd do everything in our power to do that. So if they want to organize something in Honolulu, that's great. But anyhow, so just about what
the
you
reason I was telling Mike is why we've got so much money, because we haven't been, our usual spend hasn't been there.
Yeah,
Right.
so $9 a month for a mailing system is not going to break the bank. We're accumulating like $4,000 or $5,000 a year at the moment, and was when we had the Brooks grant as well, it was even worse. I mean, or better, because we had all of this money and we had to get rid of it every year. So there was a lot of processing of grant applications and things like that too, because we just can't have like $100,000 sitting on the books doing nothing. So yeah, we're trying to find new ways to do things, like put forward for events. If people want to sponsor stuff in their region and they want a few $100s or something for an event, or banners like Wayne was saying, or whatever, then that's fine. And Wayne travels because he's not independently wealthy person, and that's always going to cost some money, but he travels a lot on his own pocket as well, and so he just gets a little subsidy for the trip for 1 or 2 times that he travels for FGG.
for example, I've got to go to Washington via New York in late
And-
October.
And they are sticklers for in-person meetings. I think
They're not doing votes anymore.
only COVID stopped them. They've been, you know, they're a bit like the Olympic Committee. They want to be at the site. They want to see the game, the sites. They want to, so you can understand why. But yeah, so that Wayne's probably the only one who's got a valid transport motivated position. Wayne and Brad.
Right. Yeah. The pair of us. Yeah.
Yep.
But
But it doesn't break the bank, and it's not.
Yeah. This
It's
particular
not business class or
going,
anything. Still goes in the cargo hold. So
this meeting, we're going to all 7 cities that are bidding for the 2030 gay games are attending, and we actually have to listen to the presentations. They're digitally, it doesn't work digitally because they're all sending delegations, and you've got to go and talk to the delegations. You spend like the whole time is work.
and as I might have touched on in the AGM, we used to have meetings in person every 2 years that were front runners focus or something. They were like
IFI,
sorry?
International Front Runners Invitational.
Yeah, so it was usually around a big race, but it would go for 2 days, and all the regional reps would go there, and they would make their presentation in person. And so what we did in 90 minutes would take, you know, 2 days, 16 hours. Yeah. So we've slimmed it down a lot, but and every now and then people want to revisit that because it's a nice social event for the reps, but you know, it is just a matter of time is money and things like that. So at the moment, this is where we are.
Our last real one was in Paris 2018.
For the big gay games back then, yeah.
Right.
Maybe the good times will come again. Who knows? For the next for Valencia.
Hey, Wayne, at this meeting that you're going to, are they making the decision at that point?
We're whittling down a month later from 7 to 3.
Okay.
So get ready, guys, because there's only one place in USA bidding. 1 from Canada, 2 Australia, 1 New Zealand. There's 4 from the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, sadly, Vancouver dropped out.
Oh, they weren't going to win anyway. They've already got the games. They're looking for new places.
Well, we were the second one. It would have been our 30th anniversary. Which would have been cool. Actually, 40th anniversary. 1990 gay games. It's the second one ever. We're here.
Yeah.
A lot of work, a lot of money. Yeah, as Sydney found out, wasn't exactly easy.
I was an owner of those games.
And they were working for that for 8 years beforehand. So there's a lot of people did a lot of work for that. So yeah, it's a big job. So probably dodged a bullet, but anyway. So moving on, that's the finances. This is only the prospective budget, so Alden can talk more to that in the steering committee when he's at the next meeting. What have we got next? So I've talked about where to find documents. Social media accounts. We also have Martin has been looking after Instagram and Twitter to an extent. So he's got the logins for those, and Wayne looks after the Facebook. So they sort of share that, and for days of significance, they usually, Woody and Martin used to keep each other honest and remember things like, you know, Bisexual Awareness Day and IDAHOP Day and all those other ones, so that we put stuff up, International Front Runners Day. So Martin is now on his own, and it occurs to me that we didn't give Rico the nod.
Yeah,
is he still interested, Nick?
His name is
Yeah.
Rick.
Sorry.
Correct.
Um, Yeah, I need to talk to him because I know it took a while for us to get back to him, but his name is Bricio,
Oh,
and I would
sorry.
love to have him take care of the social media. He said yes, but I can definitely reach out to him this week and have a conversation with him. So I think that'd be great because he's really good with he handles the stories and some other aspects of Front Runners New York, their social media. So I think he'd be a good fit for that.
Well, I don't think that anybody else is exactly rushing to fill the position. So if he'd be happy to do it, we'd be happy to have him. And one of the other big things is not just doing. So Woody really did a lot of work on interviews and pieces about individual reps or individual members and what they'd done to sort of get engagement. So that's really valuable. And then the other thing is the newsletter, which is a lot of work where people send stuff in and they have to fix the formatting, compile it up, and then send it around so that we don't have to have a 2-day meeting. So the newsletter was something we wanted to do twice a year. It seems like we're lucky to get it out once a year, but maybe Bricio, if he wants to discuss that, taking that over, it would be something that we could get them to do. That'd be good.
Well, I kind of pitched it as a social media and also kind of in charge of the newsletter.
Oh, good, good. As long as you did it that way, and there was
I
no
was
hidden.
like, no hidden agendas, just threw it in there. Like, yeah, you'd be great for it.
Cool, cool. Okay, if you could just make sure that he's okay, and we can then get him ratified at the next steering committee meeting and get him on board.
Okay.
So we want to have the next steering committee meeting soon, but maybe we should have if he's still interested, we should have a catch up and have a chat with him about what to do.
That sounds like a plan. I'll reach out to him, then I'll let you know.
Okay. And then the last thing is FGG. So did you want to go through FGG stuff, Wayne? You've got down here International Front Runners Day, Rainbow Memorial Run, and the Gay Games future plans.
So we're probably the most active part of this little section of the steering committee, as in Brad Fletcher and I are as delegates to the Federation. We have a responsibility to the Federation to feed back information backwards and forwards between IFR and the Federation. It's a two-way channel, and as well, we have to serve on 2 committees, and there are lots of different committees, but the big ones are sport, which we both attend extremely regularly, and I'm also on, or we both are on site selection, which is picking the future games and doing that process, and that is right now super onerous because we're now spending days and days and days reviewing the 7 bids from the cities. Just so you privately know, you guys, Adelaide, Vancouver, and Frankfurt pulled out, mostly because of money from government and whatever. They didn't get enough support. And those 3 cities have pulled out, leaving 7 cities. The bid documents are they're private. Only Brad and I can get access to them. And they're all 100 pages long. And they take about 4 or 5 hours to review each one of them. I've finished one city, Brad's nearly finished his first. And so that's taking a lot of time at the moment. Plus we meet every month, and we're doing a lot of work on that. So IFR is definitely well represented. So when you go to the meetings, you can see it's like this. You can on WebEx, you can see who's there, and IFR is definitely well attended. We're not the biggest sport. We're probably the 2nd biggest sport, particularly now the bowling's left the federation, although they're kind of still there. But officially they've left. We have about 10,000 members. We have 3 principal components for gay games: track and field, which is a 5-day event, the 5 and 10Ks, and the half and full marathon. We also have a secondary level of trail running. If they want to put, if a city bids and they want to put trail running on, they can do that. That's an accepted sport. All our sports are considered a category A, and a category A sport is something that is easy, like it's automatically accepted and can be done and staged if the host city wants to do it. They have to do track and field, and they have to do 5 and 10K. It's their option whether they want to do a marathon. But however, all cities have bid, and they all put it in. And Brad is on another committee for governance, which is checking all the rules and everything like that. And I'm on another committee, the Tom Waddell selection. The Tom Waddell Cup is an award that goes. It's like a knighthood for gay games, and one person is selected for the Tom Waddell Award for every 4 years. International Frontrunners Day is on the 15th of June every year. We only have one honorary member, and that's Patricia Nell Warren, and that is her birthday. We just picked a day because it's, for you people in the Northern Hemisphere, it's quite busy and warm. We just picked a day that we encourage our clubs to do some sort of event, whether they just call their regular run. Okay, this is our IFR Day run. In the past, some clubs have gone to great lengths and done some big events. We totally leave it up to their own club. And we like to encourage people to go to their club and somehow publicize it through some social media about why they're in Frontrunners or what makes Frontrunners so great for them. And we get some very heart-touching stories about how wonderful Frontrunners is, and that's something that we can really move ahead with now, particularly that COVID's kind of out of the way. The International Rainbow Memorial Run is a memorial run, supposed to be, held at the Gay Games. However, host cities from the Gay Games, so now we've got 10 or 11 previous cities, stage one part of that rainbow run, and they all start in San Francisco. Usually San Francisco Frontrunners puts on an event around Christmas time, New Year. They kick it off and do a run. Then it comes to Sydney because it's summer for us and it's Mardi Gras, and we do a run, and it's usually a part of Mardi Gras. We go in the Mardi Gras parade. Then it goes around to the other host cities, previous host cities around the world. And that usually needs some encouragement because there's really no Cologne Frontrunners. We have a problem there. We have a problem with Amsterdam. But we try and get as many clubs as we can to do that rainbow run. I have a copy of the original flag. There are 3 copies around the world. I believe 2 are lost. So at the moment, I'm the only holder of this. Well, it's a copy flag. It's not the real one. The real flag's in some gay archives is it Washington? I don't know. You guys would know. Whatever, the National Archives. I think if they're in Washington, that's where it's stored. The other things we're getting involved with is our future. We need to look at. It's becoming more and more important, but I've got a feeling we need to start trademarking our IFR brand. It's popping up more and more regularly that other organizations are calling them this or that. We probably should start looking at working on some subcommittee or something about how we could trademark and protect our name. And yes, we've got two, just so you know, Mike, we've got two Facebook pages sort of thing, but I don't understand the difference between them. The one that I operate or manage is very frequent, where I let clubs submit stuff. I'm a bit funny, I check who can be there. I just don't let everybody be a member, because we get lots of, you know, stupid stuff. I'm sure Brad gets it through website as well, but we get a lot of spam. But I try and make sure that those people are chucked off straight away. So if you want to use Facebook, please do. We'd love you to use it and let us know what's going on in your clubs, or get people to advertise. In fact, all regional reps, if you're watching this, get your people to join the Facebook page and to get them put their stuff up. Some regular cities are doing great, and they love it. We get good feedback from it.
And we have a Strava group as well, did you say?
Yeah, the Strava, there's an Instagram group. Yeah. The Strava group kind of is a bit weird, but
Yeah, there's lots of people on
I
it.
use Strava.
It was kind of good during pandemic as well, because there were a lot of Strava virtual runs.
Yes, yep.
That's it.
And if you got any questions, Mike or anybody else about Federation, let us know. We're glad to help you. Though we're super busy at the moment.
Oh, Mike, you're on mute, I think.
I am, so I could cough earlier. Thanks for the summary, Wayne. That was helpful.
And Wayne's meetings are not usually at any decent time. They're stupid, like Apple product launch time, 3 a.m., 2 a.m., that sort of thing, just nuts. So
one this week at 2 a.m. and another one at 5 a.m.
So yeah.
I don't go to bed for that, Mike. I stay in bed with the screen off. They're used to me, and I'm moaning and groaning every time.
Camera off. That's right.
Well, we're supposed to be global. This is my input. We're
There you
supposed
go.
to be global, and they put shit
Well,
on.
you represent anyway. You turn up, so that's good.
Oh God, they know we're there.
Okay, I think that's the end. Has anybody got anything else that they wanted to?
When is the next steering committee meeting?
Well, that's another thing. You and I could probably talk about how to organize that. So we tend to have one every 6 to 8 weeks. So I guess it's up to you and me for me to hand over to you about getting the gang back together again for the next one. So what we've been doing is something that was set up about 10 years ago, was use Doodle to find a convenient time for everybody. If you've got a better way to do it, then I'm all ears.
Doodle's great.
We need one definitely by about the 5th of October, because I need to talk to you as a group about the 7 bids. Well, me and Brad have to talk to you about the 7 bids, and you have to give us your input about influencing us which 3 are the best options for international frontrunners.
And you've done that before, showing us that what you can, because a lot of that is commercial in confidence too. So there's a limit to what you can disclose.
Information that I can give you. Yep.
So you're talking about the date would be, you want to have it, so this would be the 5th and 6th, the weekend of the 5th and 6th?
Something like that. So then Brad and I can go and do our further research. We have to go and investigate even more on on what we decide as the top 3.
So could the weekends options be the 5th and 6th, or the 12th and 13th, or has it got to be the September and October?
Well, if you make it the 12th and 13th, I'm leaving the next week, so it doesn't give me much time to research the 3.
So we should make it the 28th and 29th, or the 5th and 6th, 28th and 29th of September, or 5th and 6th of October.
5th and 6th gives us 2 weeks to get it together.
And Mike, usually that it can also be the like 5th, 6th and 7th of October, or the 29th and 30th of, so it's usually 3 days that we give people a convenient time, and I use time and date to find where the most green is for all of the reps.
Right.
So it's Wayne and I can tolerate a time between like 5 and 8 for a meeting on Monday. But please nothing earlier than that.
When does
Yeah.
daylight saving finish for you guys? Because we would have started by then.
Oh, there's one glory month where we've actually got an even more convenient time for a meeting, because daylight savings changed over in the Northern Hemisphere for some people and not for us, or vice versa. I can't remember. I think ours won't start until, it doesn't start until mid-October, does it?
I've got to. It starts before I leave, so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
maybe it's
October.
September. Anyway, time and date will take that into account. So, yeah, the idea first is to find convenient time. This is whatever you see in your calendar at the moment, whatever you have in the doodle from before, is probably not going to be that far off what we want to set for the next one, for the next steering committee.
Right.
And
Starts
yeah.
on the 6th of October, that same weekend.
Sorry?
It starts on the 6th of October for us.
Oh, great. Okay. So we have to get up early anyway.
Well, that's good timing. I returned from Japan on the 4th, it looks like, so I'll be around on the 5th and 6th. So we'll talk and get that going.
Okay, cool.
Will you use Doodle again?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you want to reach out and have a special meeting about it or anything else, Mike, let me know.
Sure.
Happy to hop on a Zoom. And
Okay.
yeah. Okay, is there anything else? All good?
Looks nice and sunny
Yeah.
where they are. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably hot.
Well, it was
Oh
20
my.
yesterday.
It's
Oh,
not a
this is-
very, there we go.
oh, look at that. What's that blue sky?
The North Shore of Vancouver. I live right near the port, which you can't see through my tree, but anyway,
Right near the what? The court?
port of
Oh,
Vancouver.
port. Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
It's just a stone's throw that way. It's my running route this morning. A short run. I just got over COVID, so I'm
Oh,
still feeling it.
Oh yeah,
It's
there's
good.
been another bloom of it over here, especially in Melbourne.
Yeah,
So
I'm seeing so many people wearing masks. I've been ignoring the COVID news lately, but you can tell. And I now know of many people who have had it after nobody talking about it for the last year, it seems. So it's
Wayne's one
happening.
of the lucky ones. He actually got a blood clot from the AZT, not AZT virus. What was it called? The AstraZeneca
Oh no.
vaccine. Yeah.
120
no.
people in Australia got it, apparently.
What was it? You're only one of 18 or 20 people. Was that right?
I think it was, I'm not sure if it's 100. Now you got me convinced. It was 120, and I'm
Oh.
not sure in the world or in,
Wow.
and you're not going
Yeah.
to believe it. Another guy from, where's he from? Toronto, Canada. He's on the Federation. Daniel Holland. I don't know if you know him. He also got a clot. So there's two.
Maybe there's more than 120 then.
Yeah.
That's quite a coincidence.
Anyway, so we might leave it there and let everyone get back on with their day. So thank you very much for joining, and I'll put this up on YouTube as well and get the transcript around to everybody in the steering committee, because once the AI finishes generating it.
Is there a private YouTube for the steering committee?
No, I usually just share it, but if you want to set one up, that'd be great. Yeah, it's not just another Google thing, isn't it? So
Yeah. Okay. Well, down the road. I look forward
Yep.
to seeing it.
Chris, don't
Okay.
forget, I want a list of all the people that attended the AGM.
Yeah, that's it'll be in that Excel spreadsheet. I'll send it through to everybody as well, and Brad. I actually have to upload the AGM as well, so I'll do both.
Okay. Yeah, just know.
And Chris, I'll reach out to you to set up a follow-up meeting so we can hand over more things.
Okay.
All right.
Lovely.
All right. Great. Thank you for doing it all these years.
That's all right. Thanks for help. Well, I need it.
Yeah. What have I done? I can never shut my mouth. That's the problem. Anyway, it's all good.
Okay,
Happy to be on the team. We'll see you guys later. Have a good rest of your weekend.
you too. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks,
care.
guys. Have a good
Bye,
one.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.